Welcome, everyone. I'm glad that you're here, and I'm going to start recording this webinar for those who aren't going to attend live. If you're like me, it's like I really try to get the live webinars, but if I can't, I like to go back to those recordings. So Heather and I are going to be going through the apps in the ecosystem. And for many of you who are joining us, there was a part one to this series, and Intuit had it on their platform and really wanted us to go through QuickBooks Online Advanced. What are some of those features? Why would somebody use QuickBooks Online Advanced? Really serving that mid-size base client and wanting to make sure that you've got all of the permissions that would be in place that might be necessary, thinking about industry and department. So it was really a good deep dive into QuickBooks Online Advanced and then adding apps. And in this webinar, what we're going to be talking about is a little bit of a build from that prior webinar where we were talking about apps and then how to implement them. What are some of the best practices for searching? So if you're somebody who's really familiar with apps, you're gonna be like, oh, cool, this is gonna be like a breeze. If you're somebody who is new and you're wanting to connect apps and you're wanting to start exploring those apps and why might you connect an app, that's really where this webinar is going to be located, is in that, I would say, kind of that beginner phase of utilizing apps. One of the things that Heather and I do, for those of you who are joining who are not part of our normal happy hour crowd, Heather and I, years ago, we used to do a road show with Intuit, and we would go out and we would be live with other accounting professionals, and we would be teaching topics about QuickBooks Online. Maybe it would be training of some sorts or even certification training. And because Heather and I are known for connecting apps, we would get the question, how do I choose an app? And that led Heather and I to come over and create the Appy Hour, which is a series that is dedicated to the accounting profession and apps. So we talk about different industries. We talk about apps for your accounting firm. We talk about apps that are for your client base. So really, it's an environment for you to be able to be made aware of what kind of apps are out there and how might you use them. So if you're unfamiliar with the Appy Hour, I recommend going and checking out our YouTube. We have about 100 videos that are on there. And if you look at apps.com currently, where QuickBooks has already vetted apps, and it's a great platform for you to go and search apps, there's about 750. So it's about a 1 in 7 chance that we have probably covered that app, and you can find some additional education there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and do an introduction of myself. My name is Liz Scott, and I am I would say a lucky person, because one of the things that I get to do in my firm is I get to specialize in working with apps. So our firm, years ago, we were some of those first runners whenever it came to connecting apps and utilizing them. And we wanted to make sure that we had a really great relationship with a lot of our apps. And that's where we spent a lot of our time, because as we were recognizing these different apps, they would ask us questions. How do I maybe map, or can you give us some feedback? And our firm started working really closely with apps. And now where we're at is we are creating training for a lot of the apps for the accounting industry. So it's a really cool spot. It's something that I enjoy very much because I love creating training, and it really lends itself well to the Appy Hour. And my buddy Heather Satterley just joined me. Heather, I'm just doing introductions. Do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm so sorry that I am late. I am actually webinar hopping today. So, so I got a little held up on the last one. So really happy to see all of you guys, see a lot of good friends here. And great to see you as always, Liz. So happy to join. I'm Heather Satterley. For those of you that I may not have met yet, I am the Director of Education and Media at Woodard. I am also a CPA and have been in accounting since, well, we'll just say for a long time. And just like Liz, I spent a large portion of my career working within the QuickBooks online ecosystem as a national trainer for Intuit. And I'm also one of the folks that developed the Intuit QuickBooks Online certification training and advanced certification training. So love accounting technology and anything that'll make our lives easier, our records more accurate, and our lives more efficient, and our reports better. So happy to be with you guys today.
It's an excellent crowd, and it's a wonderful topic. I was introducing a minute ago that this is a part 2 of the series where we talked about QuickBooks Online Advanced. And really, I would say that this is a bit of a beginner webinar where we're talking about how do you search for apps? How do you look for apps? How do you connect apps? All about the vetting. So that's where we're going to be diving in and going through. And I want to go ahead and share just a little bit about that webinar. So if you are somebody who is curious about that part 1, here is the link to that URL that you can take and go search that if you want to go ahead and see how do you serve clients with QuickBooks Online ecosystem. And we're really diving through and talking about a lot of the mid-market needs. And there's a lot of accountants who are out there who are specializing in that mid-market area. And you really do need to have QuickBooks Online Plus. You need something else. I don't mean the subscription plus. That was probably confusing. I mean QuickBooks Online subscription in addition to apps. So let me clarify there. So we want to make sure that everybody has the kind of environment that is going to work for them.
Oh, 100%. And can I just say how cool it is? I'm looking at this URL and I'm like, we have an Intuit URL now. So excited about that. No, Intuit is definitely our buddies. We love them. We love the QuickBooks Online ecosystem. So it's really exciting to have to be working on this project with them. So yeah, definitely check out that first webinar, especially if you're new to the QuickBooks Online ecosystem. We have a really great conversation about the basics, and not just talking about apps today in this webinar. And I'm sure, Liz, you already said this. We really focused on the whole QuickBooks ecosystem, with QuickBooks Payments, QuickBooks Payroll, QuickBooks Time, and really focusing on that. In this webinar, we're going to be focusing on when do we need an app? Like, when do we need to look outside of that core, Intuit solution? So excited about this.
And one of the things, so you just kind of mentioned some of these, and so I'm going to go and flip to it, but you were talking about payments and payroll and then moving over to third-party apps. That was part of that webinar series that we had as part 1. And one of the reasons why we started there, and we kind of want to refresh a little bit, is because Intuit has created several solutions that are built in. So they're, not just integrated, they're actually part of the solution itself. And so if you utilize QuickBooks Payments, if you utilize QuickBooks Payroll or QuickBooks Time, if you use any of these different solutions, it's directly inside of QuickBooks. You don't even have to leave in order to have the functionality, collecting payments, seeing the status of payments. But here's where we want to start going further and talking about the third-party apps.
Exactly. Yes. And there's a lot of third-party apps. So there's quite a few of them. So we'll be talking about that as well.
Well, and there's quite a few of them because we have different areas that we need apps. And so whether it's, some of these that are being highlighted on our screen right here, General Ledger, I'm thinking about, there's apps out there that are going to do reviews of QuickBooks. So looking at all of the accounts, looking at the transactions that are within those accounts, making sure that there's vendor names, making sure that there's consistency. So there's apps out there that will actually look at what did you do with that particular vendor for choosing the account. And did you continue to use that same account, or were there discrepancies? And it will actually draw that to your attention. There's several of them out there now that will do that, but it helps you to have an idea as to, is there some cleanup that you can do along the way instead of just doing it all at year end?
Yeah. And no, absolutely. And I love this slide. I mean, this slide really depicts what can you do in QuickBooks without an app. So it's the core. And this was how QuickBooks Online was designed. So when they relaunched QuickBooks Online back in 2012, when they did the new Harmony release, if anybody goes back that far, I can't believe that's been over 10 years now, Liz. But when they released the Harmony, which is the QBO that, or at least the base of the QBO that we know and love, right? You know, that was the whole idea behind QuickBooks Online, was to have it be an open platform so that we could start with you know, that core functionality that we need for a general ledger accounting system, and then add best-in-class pieces from third-party developers that would allow us to create this customized accounting solution for our small business clients. And as you know, over the last 10, 11 years, as it's evolved, now we're seeing the solutions really, you know, become, you know, really, really slick. We've also seen QuickBooks Online become more built out and more complex and more feature rich. And so now we're starting to see, or not even starting to see, we're now having the ability to move up market to that those mid-market companies that need those more robust functionality within their company. So it's really an exciting time. You know, it's been really cool to see Harmony mature over the past 10 years and see the functionality, you know, the core functionality expand, and then see the apps become even better. So what we could do, you know, 5, 10 years ago compared to what we can do now is pretty astonishing.
I agree with you. It's, I think about QuickBooks Online as being our frame. And then from there, we all have very specific needs. We have clients that might be in a particular industry. We might have different departments that we're working with. We may have, you know, automation needs. Of course, you know, Heather and I, we're both big fans of automation. Any place that you can find an opportunity to streamline, that's a great use of an app. You know, we often talk about that we want an app to feel like an extension of our office. So we want it to feel like it's a department. But there's a lot of different reasons why you might want to say, here's my framework with QuickBooks Online, but I want to pull in an app in order to make it more efficient or help with the different departments.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with that 100%. And honestly, the best place to start, Liz, I always feel, especially for those, and I know a lot of people on this call, you guys have been around for a while and you've really already been honing in on your ecosystem. But for those of you that are just starting, the best place to start is in your own firm. So if you're just starting out with QuickBooks Online Accountant, you're just starting to work with clients, the best way to learn how to create an optimal ecosystem for a client is to start at home, right? To start with your own firm and start looking for what are solutions that you can use in your own firm to be comfortable adding apps and working with apps and vetting apps and making sure that you feel really comfortable providing that type of service to your client and supporting them. So we're definitely going to be talking about different types of apps that you use in your firm today on this webinar. And I would encourage, you know, you guys to use the webinar chat to share what are the apps that you guys are using in your firm that you could not possibly do without. I would love to see some of that chatter to start in our chat to help the folks that are just getting started.
Yeah, and you're right. Like, we have some of the people who are here with us are people who join our Appy Hour meetings quite regularly. So they're very familiar with apps. And we also have a lot of people here that are very new to the concept of apps. So if there's chat that you want to share with each other, that always helps. You know, we're one big accounting industry and we're trying to, you know, swim our way through it the best that we possibly can. And so it's always nice to have buddies to swim with.
I'm going to throw mine in to start that conversation. So rewind backups is always a go-to for me. Every client that I have is on rewind. That helps me to sleep tonight, knowing that if I need to go back in time and basically erase something that a client may have done accidentally, that I have the ability to do that. So
I love that. I'm going to put in here that for me, I like auto review. So auto review is that app that I was alluding to a minute ago that was talking about going in and reviewing your QuickBooks subscriptions and, client by client on that base.
right.
Moving like into this concept of a business solution, I think that that's the place that many of us are positioning our client offerings. I would say that a lot of the firms that are probably here, started off with doing bookkeeping and accounting services, but it's grown into, we need to be giving advice about which apps to use for different environments. And so that is what's creating this business solution. If you think back to the QuickBooks Desktop days, you've got QuickBooks Desktop that's a very, very large program. And I would say sometimes it's too clunky for a lot of businesses. It's got too much that's there, where QuickBooks Online has really created a lot of functionality that's there. So it's very similar, but it is designed with this kind of plug and play. So if you think about your phone and you have apps for your phone, that's the same way that QuickBooks Online is designed, in order for you to say, this is the way that my client needs to play, or this is the way that we work. And so we need to have these types of apps in order to help us with being efficient.
100%. And we're seeing more and more as firms start to niche, right? Or niche. You say niche, I say niche, tomato, right? That we're starting to see that firms are coming up with a kind of a customized tech stack for their firm. So the accounts payable solution that they prefer, receipt capture. It could be, somebody mentioned Right Networks for hosting, and Dext is a great one for receipt capture, and they're now stepping into offering additional services and functionality within their app as well. So I think it's interesting to see, and what we've been doing with Appy Hour in 2023 is focusing on the secret sauce of some of our peers who have been sharing their tech stack, both internally, which is the tech that they're using within their firms to run their own accounting practice or bookkeeping practice, and then also what tools are they using with their clients. And those could be things like, industry specific apps, not apps that are geared towards not-for-profits or e-commerce, inventory, things like that. So if you check out our website, theappyhour.com, you can find the recordings of these episodes where we've actually met with and highlighted some of these practitioners where they've shared their best practices and their tech stack. So you can learn real life examples of how they have embraced the QuickBooks Online ecosystem.
And it's something that is exciting, but it can be scary. So I love it that we're having firms come on to share their tech stack, because it feels less scary whenever you say, oh, I've seen it done before, or I know somebody is using these solutions and I trust that person. I listen to that person. Maybe, some of these people, they write and they have webinars or blogs. And so you might follow those people. So to learn their tech stack is exciting, because you can do it too. So exploring the apps ecosystem, Heather, you were hitting on it just a minute ago whenever you were talking about industry and you were talking about departments. That's going to be a place where we really are going to be diving in, because we're often working with our clients and they're telling us the kinds of things that they might need. Sometimes they can't really put it into words about what it is that they are really looking for. They just kind of have a little bit of an idea, but that's part of where you can have some tools and some vocabulary to help to pull it out of them. And so I really like the book, oh gosh, who is the author? It's the Why book. And it's one
Simon
of
Sinek?
those, yes, thank you. And it goes through, if you have a client who gives you an answer, you can then follow it up with why, and then again, why, and again, why. And that way it really gets you into what are some of those basic needs and what are some of the things that they're really looking for in order to then go and find a good solution. Because if you don't understand what it is that the problem is, you're not going to ever be able to actually solve for it because you haven't really identified what that problem is.
Yeah, and I remember going to a webinar that Stacy Kildell did, and again, I'm going back in a time warp back to I think 2012. But I remember she did this amazing, and it wasn't a webinar; it was an in-person event where she was talking about understanding or trying to find out what clients really needed, and they don't know what they need, and they really do have trouble explaining to us accounting brains what it is that they're looking for. So really kind of looking for those latent or hidden needs that they don't really have the words to tell you about, but you can pick out that information just by listening to what they're complaining about, right? Their frustrations. So when they're saying, I can't find something, or I have to put this in, I have to enter this data in 5 different places, that's a pain point. And just by listening to those comments as you're working with your client, you can start to identify that phrase is actually speaking to automation. I want a piece of software that is going to sync to my QuickBooks data so I don't have to enter the same information into 3 or 4 different places.
And there's some firms that I've talked to that have created this needs assessment. They've maybe documented a few different types of questions. Who's going to be using the app? What department is this for? Who all is going to need training? And so there's templates that you can find for needs assessments whenever you're asking the client questions. But really the thing that you're trying to do is you're trying to understand, so that way you can help with the solution. Because oftentimes we know our industry is trying to scramble for a solution, but we haven't always heard all of the needs.
I love that, Liz. And you're right. Understanding everybody that is either trying to get information from the system or they're interacting with it, right? Because there's both, right? You have the people that are actually clicking on the keyboard, and then you have the people that are getting the report PDF to them and email to them or Slack to them or whatever, and they're using the information coming from that app. So you have to talk to both the doers and the users, right? Because you need both of their perspectives.
I love that. And one of the things that I'm excited that we're going to be sharing is it's a worksheet that you designed. So it's an evaluation form for apps. And Heather, it's been one of those tools that I have used repeatedly in my firm. And I'm excited that we're going to be sharing it with our audience today. So it is something that a lot of firms are asking. How do I evaluate? So maybe I've listened to the needs and maybe I've documented the needs and I'm now starting to look for a solution. How do I evaluate? So this really cool tool, I'll go ahead and put it on the screen here, but I'm going to say there's a link that you can actually use. I'm going to put it in our chat so you can actually follow along with this evaluation. So Heather, do you want me to kind of talk through it, or do you want to talk through it?
Yeah, you can talk through it if you'd like. That sounds great. One thing I did want to just say is that when you, if you go back to the other slide, there's one bullet I wanted to speak to really, really quickly.
Of course.
If we can go back, is defining the best possible outcome. I think that is really important. And that's the starting point for when we use this tool that Liz just kind of gave you a preview to. So yeah, is what is the best possible outcome look like? And I think that's something, our good friend Mariette Martinez, everybody says this, you begin with the end in mind, right? What does that look like? What are you trying to solve? And then what are all the things that a solution could have that would make the solution the best possible solution? I just wanted to touch on that for a minute. Then you're ready to research once you've defined that.
And that's a really, really good distinction right there to make sure that you're using the form to its best of its ability. So I see people are already in here and they're looking around. And Heather, do you want to walk us through any of the
Sure.
features here?
Yeah, so you're going to notice that we have columns A through H across the top. And so what you're going to do to use this sheet, and this sheet was designed to to compare 3 different apps, but you could certainly add column, take column F, G, and H and add as many as you needed to. But what it does is you start by identifying the problem and then identifying in column A, starting on row 5, what are the must-haves for the application, right? So in this case, it looks like we're looking for a solution for a contractor, it looks like, because we're looking at Jobber, Notify, and Kickserve. So here we said this automatically has to sync the balances from QuickBooks. So that was if the application did not have that feature, the sync to QuickBooks, it was a no-go. And so you're going to list the must-haves, updates customer status. So we want to know, is the job in process? Is the job, waiting for an estimate to be accepted? That it creates work orders and estimates, that it has a mobile app because we have field service team that needs to go out and have access to all this stuff. So you're going to actually go through and you're going to write down all of those must-haves, and you're going to weight all of those as an importance of 10. So you're going to see in column B, we have importance 1 to 10. 10 means it's got to be there. So our must-haves are obviously 10s. So you're going to go through and you're going to put all of those in. Then you're going to start to think about what are the nice to haves, because this is really where the ideal apps are going to bubble up to the surface, because there's lots of apps out there for the same, that do basically the same thing. So a nice to have might be maybe a mobile app isn't a must to have for a particular solution. It's a nice to have. Well, that would be really cool if it had, if it had a mobile app. Another nice to have could be maybe it has the ability to snap an image of the job site. Maybe that's a nice to have. It's not something we need. Like, we're not going to not implement it because it doesn't have it, but that would be a nice to have. So in this case, for this particular assessment, we want to be able to schedule 6 weeks out. We want notifications via email or text to team, the ability to add notes to line items, integration with CRM. And then in column B, because these are nice to haves, we're going to weight them between 1 to 10. Or 1 to 9, really, because if it's a 10, it goes up to the must-haves. So for scheduling dates 6 weeks out, we decided, hey, that's a 5. So we're going to add 5 points to the score of any app that we review, because that's how we feel about that feature. So the spreadsheet that you're looking at already has the formulas built in to give you the scores across the apps. So you want to do this first. You want to go through this, and when I had Satterley Training and Consulting, which I sold to Growth Lab last year, this was part of our secret sauce of the firm. This was really where we were going in and we were working with the client or within our own processes to determine what does that ideal solution look like. Then what we would do is we would go out and we'd start to find applications for the specific need. And then we had a way to compare and grade which one was closest to the needs assessment that we had already completed. So this isn't meant to be like the silver bullet, right? So just because it gets the highest score does not mean it's necessarily the right app, because we have other things to consider, which are the others, which are ease of use, quality of support, ease of implementation, average review, number of multiple scenarios allowed, things like that, anything else that you wanted to add. And those are really, really important, right? So you could find an app that functionally does everything you want it to do. Functionally, it's fantastic, but it's really difficult to use, or it's really slow, or it's got a lot of glitches. That's not a good app. It may functionally do what you need, but if it's really difficult to use, then people aren't going to use it. And it's going to end up not getting, really integrated and adopted within the tech stack. So these are all things that we need to be looking at. And Don says he needs this example right now. So you can go through and grade it, and it's gonna, the idea is it's gonna set you in the right direction. And then after you would have gone through this, you would go through a demo and maybe do a trial of the app to see if it really is a good fit. The other thing that I would just say when you're utilizing this tool is that, you're going to set this up. And then what I find really helpful is to be filling this out as you are meeting with the developer and then making notes. So in this case, if we were looking at Java, I would schedule a demo with Java, or I would take out a trial, and then I would go through and I would make sure that I'm answering all of these questions. So if I can't figure it out, I've already got it documented, and I can go through and ask the question and say, okay, well, is there a way for me to receive the payment in the field? Because I don't see that. You haven't covered that. And at that point, they can answer your questions. And that's really maximizing the usefulness of this tool.
And Heather, one of the things that happens by nature is our firm started offering, apps quite a while back. And what we have done is now we've got several of these app evaluations that we've done in different industries, and we can use them over and over again. We will go out and we'll make sure that there hasn't been feature changes, but we've got our templates in place, because sometimes it's the same apps that you're reviewing. This was field services that we were evaluating, but e-commerce is another one. Does it import everything? Reports is another one. Business analytics, budgets, whatever it is that are your must-haves. Once you start to go out and evaluate those different apps with your clients over and over again, you can take this template and you can, edit it as you need to. Maybe you've got a client who has particular apps in mind, but this is a really good resource. And
it's a deliverable too. So, I mean, I know I used to do this and I charged for it. So I will do this with you. I'll figure it out. I'll vet the apps, and then this is my deliverable. Here you go. This is what, this is what I recommend based on what I have researched for you. And that is actually it's very valuable to companies. So
one of the things that it does is it puts it in black and white. It takes the emotion part out of it.
Right.
And people usually are struggling with emotionally, am I going to make a bad decision? Well, if you put it down in black and white and you're looking at it with your clients and you're going through the evidence together, you've got the facts in place, and that's what you're basing your decision on.
Exactly. There's other things that, you want to be looking at too. And I know we don't want to spend too much more time on this. Definitely, by the way, people, you can go through the file up within the spreadsheet and download this in Excel format, and then you can have it and use it in your firm. So, but the other thing I would say is make sure that you're looking, and Liz, I know this isn't just a big deal for you, it's a big deal for all of us, is that you're reading the privacy policy, that you understand the EULA, that you know how your data is being used, right? So these are all things that you also need to be really aware of, especially if you're starting to recommend apps to your clients. And I think that's really important. Do keep in mind, though, and we're about to get here, is that Intuit does do some vetting on security and the industry, the industry standard for privacy and security of all the apps that it endorses on apps.com. So you do have that, that can help you when you're making a decision too. If you find an app, because there's thousands and thousands of apps that actually connect to QuickBooks, only the ones that are on apps.com have been vetted by Intuit. And that's important.
I think that is an important, and as you were talking, I went ahead and just added, how is data stored? Security.
Oh, I love that.
That's part of why this template is great, is that you can edit it to meet whatever needs that you have that are specific to that client or even your firm.
Yes, definitely. Great conversation.
So everybody should have access to this resource. And Heather, you had talked a bit about apps.com. Do you want to expand further about the how to search?
Yeah. Do you mind if I share my screen?
Oh gosh, yes, go right ahead.
All right, so let me get into, so you can search from two different places. Let me just make sure I'm getting into the right, here we go. So you can actually do this right from within your QuickBooks online account. or you can just go on out to type in apps.com. It's going to redirect you to this URL that you see right up here. But if you type in apps.com, this will come up. So this is the App Store. There are over 750 apps now on the intuitapps.com App Store. And the best way to search for apps, well, there's a couple of ways. I find the easiest way for me is to search by a keyword or a category. So for example, if I was looking for job costing, I could type in job costing, press enter, and it's going to give me 11 results. Now, what it's looking for here is it's searching the descriptions of these apps for the word job costing. So you're going to see that I have this GovCon Connect, which is actually all about DCAA compliant job costing, but I also have some hour timesheets, right? Which is time and attendance. And the reason is because that is a component of job costing. So I saw that somebody had said, Dawn had mentioned, sometimes it's hard and there is kind of an art to this, but I find the more you put in, the more likely it is you're going to get what you're looking for. So if I put in time job costing, now I have 10. So it eliminated one. I wasn't paying attention to which one. The other thing that you can do, let me just go back, is you can view them by category. So if you're looking for customer management or marketing, you're looking for something in marketing, you can search that way. One of the things, like, for example, with marketing, we have Go Proposal, which Go Proposal is for, I believe that's for sending out proposals to your clients or estimates, right? And engagement letters. To me, like, I don't think of that as marketing, yet it came up in marketing. So it does take a little bit of finesse. And Liz, do you have anything to answer to that or anything to add to that?
Yeah, whenever I'm looking at the apps that are being pulled up, I'm also paying attention to the reviews, because those reviews are really helpful, because sometimes people will write in reviews and they'll tell you exactly how they're using it. They'll tell you why they like it. They'll tell you why they don't like it. And so I think that reading the reviews here helps to narrow down the solution. Like, maybe that could even be a line that you put on your app evaluation. What's the customer rating?
It is actually on that evaluation. Absolutely. So I agree with you 100%. So, and one of the things that I do is you can see that you can sort the reviews by lowest to highest and then from highest to lowest. So when I'm looking, especially, this app only has 34 ratings, but if we go to, let's see, I bet Bill has a zillion. So let's go in here. Yeah, 1,005. So if we go in here and we go to the reviews, if I want to look at the lowest, then I can start to look at, what do people not like about it? And then go to the highest and see what people do like about it. So you have the ability to kind of flip back and forth. And then the other thing that I would just say to all of you is, as you are starting to implement apps in your firm and with your clients, fill out the reviews. If you love it, tell the world that you love it and why you love it. And if it's something that didn't work out quite right, that's also really important information. So don't keep those opinions to yourself. I always say, please be kind, because I like everybody to be kind. But, if something's not working, especially if it's something that is, we've seen apps out there that just don't do accounting correctly. If that's something that you're seeing with an app that you vetted, I want to know about that, because that's a big deal. If it's not accounting for something properly, then that could really be, and have a negative impact on the ecosystem of that, of a particular client or even for my firm. So, when you go into the app, this is the app detail screen. It'll give you an overview. There's usually a video and there's screenshots. I love the screenshots because the screenshots will give you a peek into the user interface. And do not, don't discredit or what's the word I'm looking for, Liz?
Overlook
overlook, right. The impact of the user interface, because especially with clients, So when I'm recommending clients or we're choosing an app together, one of the things I always do is ask them, so what do you think of the interface? And I'll show them, all of the ones that I'm looking at, which one kind of resonates with you better. Now, one thing I will tell you, if they're QuickBooks Online users and the developers know this, and you can see it right here in bill.com or Bill, that's funny, they haven't updated the logo. It still says bill.com. That it looks like QuickBooks Online. And I think that we see a lot of developers actually do that because they know, hey, they're already used to working in an application that has this user interface. It'll be more fluid and more seamless if we make our interface look similar to that. So we see that happen as well. But that is important stuff. I have early on, I didn't think about that. I only looked at the functionality, and I had a couple of implementations kind of blow up in my face because the client, after we had gone through the implementation and I delivered it to the client was like, I'm never going to use this. This is horrible. I don't know how to navigate. It's really difficult to use. So it can't just be functionality.
I agree. I mean, there has to be definitely more to it that you're evaluating. And, if I go back to accounting, that would be another area that you can search. Because if we're talking about our industries and we're talking about, what client base that we're serving, or in this case, if we're thinking about our own firms, what's available to us, this is where we can start to see, again, there's that load more because it's picking up on probably the word accounting. So you might have to get more specific. So, accounting workflow.
You want accounting?
Okay,
I
fund
put in
accounting.
fund
There you
accounting.
go.
So interesting.
Yeah, no, I end up finding apps every single time that I go and search. It's like, oh, okay. Or
Yeah.
I go, I didn't
Oh,
know
yeah.
that app did that. And so it makes
Right.
me more aware of some of the app's features, because maybe I'm looking at just like Jarab, just the reporting, but if I'm thinking about fund accounting and Jarab pulls up, it's like, do they have some type of solution that maybe they're partnered with, or what is it that triggered that? Sometimes gets my attention.
And I think it's also important, Susan brought up in the chat that that she not only looks at the reviews, but at the number of reviews, because we have this Fintanium that has a 5-star review, but there's only one. And we don't know who that person is. So it is important to kind of look at, what is the distribution of the reviews, for sure. And honestly, reviews, stars, whatever it is, really, you're not going to know whether it's going to be a good solution until you test it yourself. That's my opinion anyway. I find that I don't really know until I've done a trial and I've actually taken a look at the functionality through using it.
Which is time consuming. And that's why the app evaluation worksheet is really important, because it's going to help you with documenting each one of those various different apps and keeping a tally. So the next time that your client comes to you, or a different client comes to you with a similar need, because maybe you're serving a particular base of clients, maybe e-commerce or field services, like we were just talking about with jobbers, and then you're going to be able to have this resource to pull from. And one of the things that we are seeing in our industry is accountants are becoming app advisors. This is something that is definitely inside of the category now of outsourced accounting, is that you also have this group of people who are also offering app advisory because it is touching the accounting.
100%. I just logged into my QuickBooks test company just so people could see where you could find the apps within QuickBooks Online Accountant, because this is where most of us are working, is within QuickBooks Online Accountant. So when you first log in, you're going to click on the apps tab in the left-hand side, and it looks exactly, this find apps area looks very similar to what we saw out at apps.com. But it also has additional functionality that they've designed just for us. And you're also able to view the client app. So within the client apps, you can view all of the apps that are connected to your client. So this is my test company and Chloe's Cookies, and you can see that I have 19 apps that I have played with on this app. And then you can also see the apps that have been added to your QuickBooks, your books. So this is also a place you can go. If you don't see the apps tab within your QuickBooks Online account, it's because you don't have permissions. You're not the master administrator, or you don't have full access. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of share that, Liz, and then I'm going to hand things back to you so we can move on with our PowerPoint. But I thought that was important to show people where they could get to the apps tab.
I think that anytime that we're talking about how to get started, that's so useful. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I'm going to take us next to is looking for apps based on a particular industry. So earlier I was talking about, using accounting apps, and Heather, you were saying the best place to begin with apps is in your own firm. So that's kind of where we're starting right here, is we're talking about what would be some of the needs. So really common needs are documenting workflow. So you don't have to store it in your brain week after week or month after month. How do you process that client sales tax? So some type of documentation storage, and then also the client communication and the team communication. So you need to be able to make certain notes to your team that's just internal, but you also need to be able to ask client questions. So I would go out and I would look for different apps, and I would start to pull in some different options. So if I pull in my different options and I looked at my evaluation and then I picked one, for instance, Client Hub here, then I would start to look at what's the workflow. So what do they offer? What does it look like? This is considered their dashboard, their client dashboard. So this lets them know what's happening with each one of those clients. So you can see it at a client level. You can actually see it at a firm level. And then you can even store files here. So they have document management. So by each client, you can see who's shared documents with you. You can actually integrate it with your email. So if something comes in through email, it's still going to capture that too. But really the goal is to use Client Hub as the tool to communicate with the client and then store information. And then that last piece where we were talking about client communication, you can actually have conversations back and forth. And that's where you can start to see a lot of these are screenshots that I pulled off the web. Part of why I do that is to go and look at, what does it look like? Is it easy to use? Like what Heather was talking about. She's had a client before who said, I don't understand the interface. That is actually really, really important. So sometimes we say user interface. Is it friendly? Is it easy to digest and navigate? So those are all things that are really important. And I do go out and I search that, and I'll look at an app and I'll type in keywords and I'll ask for images to pop up, because that gives me some idea as to what that app is going to look like. We also have apps out there that are for e-commerce. So again, we're talking about an industry specific app. Many of you know that Cinder has been part of the recommended app stack for this year. So we're really focusing on app stacks, apps that do a lot in a particular industry. So Cinder has been one of those apps that we've just continued to get really good reviews whenever it's somebody who's utilizing an e-commerce platform and wants to get those transactions in. I'm going to move over to accounts payable. And here it's like we were talking a minute ago about Bill. It used to be bill.com, now it's just Bill. We were talking about that being an accounts payable solution. So maybe you've gone through and you've looked at all of the various needs, and then you start to search for that solution. And you pull those in and you evaluate them based on what all you need. So in this case, payment approvals or bill approvals, all of those are steps in the workflow that you need to know, is that a requirement and does that solution actually provide it? Heather, I love that we were talking about nonprofits earlier. and there was a let's just go ahead and demo. So I'm going to stop sharing so that way you can share, unless you want me to move over to this slide where we're talking about the nonprofits.
Yeah, no. Why don't I go ahead and share my screen? And what I wanted to do now is show you the process of adding an app to a client's account or your own account. So for those of you that have never done this before, I want to walk you through the whole process of searching for the app. We'll go through vetting the app, and then let's actually connect the app to my test company. And this is actually an app that I have used. The one that we're going to connect is one that I've used. So we were talking about nonprofits. So let's go ahead and search for nonprofits. And we've got a whole bunch of different apps here on nonprofit. Now, this was pretty general. So maybe when I'm looking at nonprofits, it's giving me too much. So maybe what I need to do is maybe I just want an app that's going to allow me to do those year-end nonprofit receipts, right? So nonprofit receipts. And now when I type in a little bit more of the keywords, I get one that comes up that gives you generate donation receipts based on legal requirements. Well, that looks really interesting to me. I'm going to go ahead and open it up. There's a video that I can watch. I'm going to go through and look at, what it does. I'm going to put in or how it works. And so it's showing me that I can put in company information. I can select the receipt format, buy receipts, and put in additional information. So what does this do? You guys are going, okay, Heather, yeah. But tell me, give me the, what is it? The TDLR or whatever it is. So I'm going to tell you what it does. What it does is it allows you to create donor letters, right? From invoices in QuickBooks Online or sales receipts in QuickBooks Online, or just right through, through the accounts. So if you have different revenue accounts, you can actually filter by the revenue accounts, select the company, and then you can create the donor letters. So this is what a donor letter would look like. And this is pretty awesome. So I actually had this need I have been treasurer of a couple of nonprofits in my day, and we needed to send out donor letters to our donors. And so this ended up being a great app for us. So once I decide that this is the app, and one of the other things I love about this is that you pay to play, right? So you get 10 receipts for free. So little tiny not-for-profits can use this for their 10 donors, right? And then if you have companies that have more, then you pay $50 per 100. And I am not endorsing them. I'm just telling you this was one that I picked because I've used it before. So what if I want to add this to a client's QuickBooks Online? I'm going to click on Get Up Now, and it's going to give me the option to either install it for my firm or I can install it for a client. And that's what I want to do in this case. So I'm going to go through and find Chloe's Cookies, which is a nonprofit company. Where is it? Chloe's Cookies, nonprofit company that makes cookies for dogs with 3 legs. How about that? That's what this nonprofit does. So I'm going to go ahead and select that, and I'm going to install it. They're very specialized. They only create dog cookies for dogs with 3 legs. So I'm going to go ahead and select it. It's going to go through, and it's going to ask me here, do I want it to have access? Do I want to give this application access to my QuickBooks information? And so it tells me that it's going to give it access to the information, including the profile info, email address, phone number, and address. And then I'm going to click authorize. Now, what it's going to do is it's going to select the company. So I'm going to select Tax Firm Extraordinaire, and then I'm going to have to go through and select Chloe's Cookies again. Click Next. And then it's going to go through and it's going to give me a little bit more information here. And I can find a list of all of the data. So when Liz was talking about where are they storing the data, what kind of data are you actually sharing with them? If you're interested in that information, you can click that. They're required to provide this information to you before you hit that connect button. So we're going to pretend that I have done my due diligence. So I'm going to go ahead and connect. Okay. My husband's going on a sailboat. You guys couldn't hear that, but he just told me he was going on a sailboat. So now what it's going to do is you're going to notice that for this particular app, and this isn't the case with every app, but with this particular app, it's allowing me, it's bringing me right into the application. I've now signed up for it right through QuickBooks. And now I would go into the setup phase. So I would go through and I would go through the setup. Now, every app is different. And this is where your experience is going to change from app to app to app, because in this case, it's bringing me through to a wizard so I can go through and add the information. In other cases, it would set up the account. Then I would have to go out to the vendor and sign up for an account, then log into it, and then do the setup. In other cases, you can't sign up through apps.com. You have to sign up with the vendor first and then connect it to your QuickBooks company. So this was a really simple version. And, there's quite a few apps. If you see Get App Now within QuickBooks, then that is where you're going to see this really streamlined sign up process. If in the apps.com, if I see learn more right here, what that's telling me is I'm going to have to go out to Kindful and sign up for my subscription out there. So Get App Now, it's going to be super simple, and I'm going to be able to just go right into the app. If I need to learn more and sign up on theirs, then that'll bring me out to their website. So I'm not going to go through and set this up, but because every app is different, but I wanted you to see what that experience looks like in case you had never set up or connected an app to QuickBooks Online before. So that is really how easy it is. Now, that's how easy it is to connect. How difficult it will be to actually set up the app depends on the type of app that you are going to be implementing. So in that case, what we recommend, Liz, I'm speaking for both of us here, is leverage support. That's what it's there for. And before you sign up for the app, if you're doing a demo, which, we just did, I would reach out to support as part of my evaluation process to see what is that experience like, especially if I'm going to be recommending the app to a client. Because if you recommend an app to a client and they have a bad customer service experience with that app, it could reflect poorly on your firm. So you definitely want to make sure you're vetting that as well.
And that's part of the reason why I do it together with my client. It is because of I want it to be a team approach. I want them to have some buy-in. I want them to take some responsibility. And it's their company that's going to be utilizing that app. So
Right.
It is important that they're paying attention. Anytime that I've just connected an app for my client and it's something that is more robust, that does have some features, or it's going to be their company is going to be the ones who are going to be using it, not us, I really want them to be involved in that situation. I want them to be active participants.
Definitely.
So for those of you here that are thinking, okay, I don't mind this whole app thing and I really want to do it, and watching Heather go through those steps looked pretty doable. If you're thinking about what do you do in order to also start offering app advisory, then I would say start with the needs. Do that evaluation discovery with your clients. And then start to talk about implementation. It might be an implementation that you're going to be doing, or it could be something like you just said, Heather, that you ask support to help you. There's a lot of apps out there that have a lot of features. And so doing an onboarding implementation is the best practice anyway.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And there's also firms out there that are really niching in that implementation space that you can partner with. So if it's not something that you want to do, you can find other pro advisors that do want to do it and will work with you to provide that solution to your client.
One of the things that I think is exciting is that Intuit is recognizing that app advisory is a common offering that we're being asked to provide to our clients. And there is brand new apps training. And it's all about becoming an app advisor. What does that mean? Does that mean that you're working in an area that you're specializing in financial management, and you need to be able to help with pulling in analytics? And so you have a specific narrow niche and you want to have apps that you offer to your clients in that narrow niche. That is something that you can do under the umbrella of apps advisory. Also, like what Heather was saying, there are firms out there that are starting to specialize in apps advisory. So going out, finding the apps, evaluating, doing that needs assessment with you. They'll actually do that with you. So what you're doing is you're bringing the client to them, and you probably might stay along for that. You may say, hey, I do my other parts, and so you're in good hands. But there is brand new training that's available to everyone. So you can go inside of your QuickBooks Online accountant, you can go over to your training, and you can see under the training library that there is apps training that's available for you. I would say this is a really great resource. As the Appy Hour, the thing that we are doing is making sure that we've got apps that help to build app stacks. Whenever Heather and I think about apps, we're not thinking about just singular, we're actually thinking about app stacks, which is why we've taken this approach to this year. Instead of having a sponsor that comes on the Appy Hour for a single episode, we're really pulling in the ecosystem. And we're saying, what are different accounting firms that we're seeing? What apps are they using? And we're bringing those to you to make sure that you've got a lot of awareness of the apps that are available. We also have the website that you can come and follow. We also have the Facebook Lounge. Many of you that are here have been part of our Appy Hour community, and we're glad to have you. And those of you who are new, we welcome you to join us. It's a great community. We talk about apps, we give feedback back and forth, and we listen to what apps are accounting professionals looking for. And then we go out and we research those, and we try to bring those to you so that way you have the latest information.
Absolutely. And, Liz, I did mean to tell you, happy birthday. We're 5 years old now. Happy Hour is 5 years old. So,
That's so exciting. Wow.
Exciting. Yeah.
That is very great news. And I love what we're doing. I love that our community is embracing this need for apps and apps education.
Definitely. Well, this was a lot of fun. I always love presenting with you. We're going to be back here in just an hour for a deep dive with our friends over at Relay. So we had a little preview of Relay just not too long ago. Karen Della Ripa shared how she's using Relay in her Profit First practice. And so they're going to be coming on and doing a deep dive with us in just under an hour. So we hope to see you guys back for that webinar. And Liz, I will see you, have a cocktail with you, and learn more about Relay in just a little bit.
Looking forward to it. Thanks everyone for joining us.
Bye-bye.